Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here. We are talking the South Regional of the NCAA basketball tournament. And, of course, the SEC tie to that is Tennessee. The Vols, we've gone over the seeding thing. We won't hit that again. But Tennessee, a 3 seed in the South Regional, where the Vols get Longwood in the first round. And despite the seeding, or the misseeding, I would say, not an awful matchup for Tennessee with the 14 here.
No, I just think Tennessee is a team, like we said, that we've been through the seeding part of it. They were underseeded as a 3. They should have been a 2. If you're going to get a team, Longwood's a team out of the Big South. Sure, they played well throughout the season, but what is it? I think they've only played one NCAA tournament team this year, and that was the first game of the season. I want to say against Iowa. Those are the things we always look at when you're playing teams like this from different, mid-major, low-major conferences, and that's what I see here. It's a team that when you really look at it, they don't have much size. And again, that the only tournament, unless I'm missing someone, the only tournament team I think they played this year would be Iowa, the first game of the season, and so I think they shoot it well from 3, but I think that's kind of, one of those things that they've done in recent years. That's one thing that I know their offense kind of can flow through that, but I'm just going to be honest, there's nothing about this to me with Longwood, at least on paper, that you're just going to look at and just be like, uh-oh, there's a big issue for Tennessee, right? They defend the 3 well, but again, there's a difference in defending the 3 well versus, playing a team like Tennessee and trying to defend the 3 well. Because as we said, Tennessee shot the ball really well. I put out the stats the other day, just how well they've shot it since the first 4 games of SEC play. I want to say I'm going to have to look it up while you're talking, but they have shot the ball really, really, really well. I want to say they've shot it almost close to 40% or so in 12 of their 17 SEC games after the first 4. I want to say something like that. And then they made, what was it? I think they made, 38 threes in their past 4 games. So I say all that to say that this is a Longwood team that was not really tested at all this season. And I just don't. This is not one of those you look at and really hesitate on for me. I think Tennessee is clearly the better team, and we'll discuss it more when we make our picks and our videos, tomorrow and Thursday. But I see no reason right now for me to pick against Tennessee in this one. So,
yeah, let me sum it up this way. When I fill out a bracket, I don't spend any time on the 116. I write the 1 in. 95% of the time, I'm the same on the 2s and the 15s, if not more than that. You do get an occasional hiccup there, but you got a limited amount of time. It's not worth your time spending there. 3 and 14s, I will look a little closer at. This one I did not. I just kind of wrote Tennessee in my bracket and moved on. So that's kind of how I feel about that. Okay, the Vols, presuming they win, would get a second-round matchup against either Michigan or Colorado State. Again, we'll go into that later if that happens, but just your quick thoughts on that. That's an interesting one.
I would take Colorado State right now. I think that we talked about them this season, right? It was at Mississippi State.
Yep.
I remember we talked about that back in December, and that's a real good team. There's no other way to put it. That's a really, really good team. I've seen people put Colorado State in the Final Four, and these are non-Colorado State fans. David Roddy is just a great player. Isaiah Stevens, they have got a very talented team, and this is not one like we kind of just talked about. They have played some teams this year, right? We talked about they beat Mississippi State, they beaten Creighton, they beaten St. Mary's. They lost, I guess, to San Diego State, but they've got some good wins. They beat San Diego State too, but they've got some good wins. Beaten Boise twice, so this is a team that has been tested, and I think that's why, if you're looking at a team like Wyoming who got in one of those last spots, I think it was because of the value of the Mountain West this year. And Nico Medved, just a very good coach in terms of, just look at kind of the offense. You can even go back to when he was at at Furman, and I guess he had that 1 year at Drake. But I mean, yeah, they're a good team. They're a efficient offensive team. I mean, they're another one that they played a pretty decent schedule overall, and so they come to this feeling like they're tested. Michigan could win that game, absolutely. Certainly, they've been tested as well. When you look at it scheduling wise, I mean, they played probably one of the tougher schedules in the country, but I still don't. I just look, the reason one's a 6 and one's an 11. I think Colorado State's simply the better team, and I would probably pick them to beat Michigan right now. So Michigan's just been way too inconsistent, way too up and down this year. So I would pick Colorado State in that matchup, and that would be a fun second round game. I mean, I think that's a semi tough second round game if you're Tennessee, but I think that Colorado State is a very good team. So
March is here. The madness has officially begun. It's time for you to shoot your shot and score big on the nonstop action with MyBookie. Predict winners in each round of the MyBookie bracket contest for a chance to win one Bitcoin, a Doodle NFT, currently valued at over $50,000, and over $100,000 more in cash prizes. Whether you're filling out multiple brackets, betting the national championship winner, or simply looking for player and game props, MyBookie has you covered. Sign up today with MyBookie. Use promo code Southeastern to make your first deposit, earning a free entry into the My Bracket contest. Selections for the bracket officially begin on March 13th and close March the 17th at 12 p.m., so make sure you get your deposit in now with promo code Southeastern to secure that free entry. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. All right, back to the bracket. Let's take a look at the other 8 teams in the other half of the South bracket. Arizona, a very popular pick to win this bracket, to also even win the whole thing. Arizona's played incredibly well under Tommy Lloyd. You got, I think, a very interesting Seton Hall TCU game. Let's hit that quadrant first. Arizona is not going to get beaten by Wright State or Bryant. And I think Arizona, I'm not going to say easily handles whoever comes out of Seton Hall and TCU, which in my mind is a toss-up. Seton Hall's played probably a little better, but is also without a key player. TCU rebounds the heck out of the ball. What do you think of those 4 teams?
yeah, I think Arizona's good. That's what I think. I think Arizona's really good, but I think that second round game against TCU is interesting because I've said it probably on here before. I've been pretty high on TCU this year. I think that's a team that's not fun to play. Of course, we saw LSU play them in the what was it, the Big 12 SEC Challenge, but still, I mean, that's a good team. They've beaten Kansas. I mean, I've said, the teams in the Big 12 are very battle tested in terms of
Yeah.
just navigating that path. But I mean, this is again, I mean, this is a TCU team that's beaten Texas Tech. They've beaten Kansas, LSU, Oklahoma twice, I think. They've beaten Iowa State. They beat A&M way back when. So good team. And some of the games they lost very close at Kansas by 4. Against Iowa State by 3. At Oklahoma State by 1. So like I just think this is a defensive team. Now they're not a great offensive team, and we've talked about that before. I think that's when we mentioned we were breaking down that LSU TCU game. They're very similar teams in a certain sense, but good defensive team. I think that they're one that they've got some good size, and so I think that's actually a very interesting second round game if that turns out to be the case. Now, if it's Seton Hall, certainly you can make some similar comparisons there. But I think if you're going to beat Arizona, you got to have some size, just because we know what what they're working with there. So I think that's certainly going to be interesting with those teams. But beyond that, I don't know what to make of the Houston, UAB, Illinois, Chattanooga
Oh man,
group
that's
there.
that's
I
it's the
think that.
toughest part of the bracket for me to figure out too, because I could see anything happening there. I could make a case for any of the 4 teams in there coming out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I could see Houston, Illinois chalk in the second round. I could see UAB Chattanooga in the second round. And any other variation in between. So I was thinking about that the other day. I actually think that may be like I won't say the most unpredictable because there's some of these we've talked about it, 4-13, 5-12s that are at least interesting matchups on paper. I think Houston's probably still a team coming out of there that I would lean on. And I know we've talked about how they haven't really played anyone this year, and everyone didn't know what they were going to do metrics wise and where they'd be seated and all that. But I mean, this is still a team, that got as far as they did last year, and and Kelvin Sampson, I've said, hey, so with all these SEC coaching carousels, if I'm an SEC team, I'm calling Kelvin Sampson to see if he wants out, because he's just so good. And so I think that will be one. If I had to guess, I think Houston probably comes out of that group there, but I think that Arizona TCU game is one I'm really looking forward to if we get that second round matchup between those two.
Yeah, Houston, I think, though, still playing without two of its top four players. Of course, you could, I think, say that for most of the season. I'm just not sure the American was a place where Houston really got tested this year. I know the computers love them, but I look at who they played, how much they beat them by. I mean, I know they whipped up on a lot of, quad 2 and quad 3 teams. I'm just not sure how much relevance that has. And that's where I get stuck on Houston, right? I don't know how much relevance that has because the teams they're going to be playing in this event are a lot tougher, I think, than the ones they played in the regular season.
Sure, and I think you could have said the same thing last year too. Well, the
Right.
American was better last year, so I think that helped. But I think you could say that just with this conference it's kind of one that's you never know what to make of it. And again, this is not the Houston team from last year, but I still think they're one. I mean, but like I said, I could just as easily see Andy Kennedy's group. I mean, we talked about what they have on the roster there at UAB. You could certainly see them being the 12-5 upset. I think with Walker and those guys and the way he's built that roster. They haven't lost since I think a month ago, so they got a lot of confidence coming into this thing. But I think if Houston gets by that, I still think that they're certainly a capable team. But I say all that to say this: I don't see anyone in the top part knocking off Arizona. So
Yeah, I'm with you there. We'll circle back to the other half of Tennessee's bracket, which I meant to do first. Anyway, first of all, another partner we'd like you to know about is our friends at Stakes, which you can find in the App Store. You can wager on sports, win NFTs without risking any money. Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, Stakes is a wagering app that's casual, social, and made for all sports fans. Whether it is by yourself or with friends, experience the thrill of sports betting without needing to worry about losing your hard-earned money. Sign up, use our code Southeastern14, join the thousands of other sports fans playing with Stakes. That app's a lot of fun. We've created some bets on there, and again, they're free, no money involved, and you can create your own too. So help out a partner of ours. Really like that app. It's a lot of fun, and a lot of stuff going on over there outside of college basketball. So be sure and check that one out. Okay. Should Tennessee get through Longwood and Colorado State or Michigan, the bottom half of that bracket, I don't see Villanova having any issue with Delaware. You got a fantastic matchup in Ohio State and Loyola. I've seen Loyola play in person this year. That team's got a bunch of guys who will spread the floor. They got some height where they got a ton of guys. They can put 4 or 5 guys on the floor at once that can shoot threes over the top of you, which makes them dangerous. They defend really well. Ohio State does not defend very well. And then you got Villanova, Blake, which I don't think I've heard a lot of talk or a lot of picks of Villanova winning this region. But that's certainly a team and a coach with some tournament history and one that had a very good season and a really tough league too.
yeah, I mean Villanova's a 2 seed for a reason. Like you said, not the first time people are could be underestimating Villanova, and all they did was turn into a couple national championships not long ago. So yeah, I mean, we've certainly moved past the days of many years ago when we had the thought of Jay Wright never being able to. What was the storyline? And he could never win the big one and all this other stuff. Well, that's been debunked now, and this is a pretty good team. I mean, it's I like veteran teams in the NCAA tournament, and I think this is one. That's not always the factor, but we've seen it before in terms of just teams that have that experience, chemistry together. They built it up the way that Villanova has, and I mean, they played a tough schedule too. Like we said, I mean, you really look at all the teams they played this year. Of course, Tennessee, they've already played. Played Baylor, UCLA, and then you got the grind of the Big East too. So I just think that Villanova is one of those teams that is going to be right there, no matter who they play, how anything unfolds. They're going to be right there with a chance to beat anybody in this part of the bracket. I don't know if they get to the Final Four. I think that game with Tennessee would be tough because I don't think we can really put a whole lot of stock into the game that they played on November the 20th. But it's a good team, and yeah, the Ohio State Loyola game. I don't really know what to make of that one either. I think you've got two teams that are good teams, but I I don't know. Like I think Villanova's set up well in that part of it. Just kind of looking at it, and that's not just because they're the higher seed. I just think the matchups tend to favor Villanova here in terms of how they would match up with these two teams. So, BJ Liddell, like you said, with Ohio State, that's certainly something that we always say when you have a player like that. That's something you can lean on, right? But I don't know. I don't have like that upset potential. I think in this part of the bracket, I just think that Villanova is a team that's kind of built to get to the Sweet 16, and then from there, it's hey, can you beat Tennessee or and can you if you move on, can you beat Arizona? So I think that's an interesting question, but yeah, this Villanova team they're really good. So
I feel like Villanova and Arizona and probably Tennessee are three of the safer picks to make the Sweet 16 in this bracket.
yeah, I think so. I think that's why we said I don't remember exactly what we said about the South. I don't think we said it was easy, but it felt pretty defined in terms of the top three having a good chance to be there. And like I said, I think it's probably either I don't know. It could be any of those other four in terms of the Houston, UAB, Illinois, Chattanooga. But yeah, I'm with you. I'd have a hard time if I'm filling out a bracket right now. I'm probably putting Arizona, Villanova, and Tennessee in there, and maybe thinking twice in a couple spots, but not too much about it.
One other thing I'm looking at is experience. You brought that up with Villanova. Seton Hall in Ken Palm's experience rankings is what? 21. Now I don't know if that includes. They've got an injury that may be included in that. Loyola's 26, which surprises me. I wouldn't have thought that. Of course, Loyola lost Krutwig from a year ago, who was their big guy. There's a couple other teams. I know Colorado State is not as high in the experience rankings, which I'm a little fuzzy on how those are calculated. I probably need to look that up. But Colorado State's got a lot of guys that have played a lot of minutes together. They've got starters that have been there the whole time.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I don't. You can look at the experience stuff, but I think there is a lot more that goes into it than just the number. But yeah, I mean, I think Colorado State's, like I said, Roddy Stevens, those guys. I mean, it's just, yeah, I like that team, and that's like I mentioned. I think if we're looking at second round games, I think there's some appealing ones in this bracket for sure. Like I said, Arizona, TCU. Not saying TCU will beat Arizona, but I think TCU again is a team that was tested a lot in the Big 12, and then Tennessee, Colorado State would just be a fun game. I think just from a matchup standpoint, it'd just be a fun game to watch. So, yeah. So I think there's a lot of potential really good games in this part of the bracket, but I still think you're leaning on the top teams to advance in most instances. So,
any parting thoughts on this bracket?
no, yeah, I mean, right now, if I had to make a pick, I think it's one of the three. It's either Arizona, Villanova, or Tennessee coming out of it. Um, I would like Colorado State better probably if they were the 5 here instead of the 6 because they wouldn't have to match up with Tennessee in that second round. And I think I'd like their matchup better, let's say either against a Houston or an Illinois. So that's the only issue I think with and as I said, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter picking Colorado State to go to the Final Four and stuff. So that shows you there's people out there that think that this team is capable of making a run. I think I don't love the draw they got having to probably play Tennessee in the second round. If they win, look, we say all that. I mean, Michigan could beat Colorado State, and that could be that. So, but if that's the case, I think Tennessee would fare very well against this particular Michigan team. So, Yeah, I think it sets up nicely for the Vols, and yeah, we'll see how it plays out, and we'll get more into these matchups in our picks videos coming soon. So
Yeah, picks will be coming soon. Also, we'll do a preview of the Midwest. We've done 3 of the 4 regions, so we got that one to come later this morning or maybe early afternoon. I'm Chris Lee. He's Blake Lovell. Thanks for watching, and be sure to hit that subscribe button.